G'day, ZiggyD here with another Path of Exile gearing guide. In this particular video I'm going to be taking a look at Quivers. I'm a bit of a fan of this slot since I really like to play archers, so let's go ahead and jump straight into the base types of Quivers that you can get, and I'll give you a bit of an explanation of what ones are really worth it. So the first thing I just want to say is that the base type of Quiver actually really doesn't matter that much. It's nowhere near as important as, like rings or amulets or even belts. So there's not too much difference between a lot of them, but there are some small differences that you can take advantage of depending on your build. So the first one we have is the Heavy Quiver, which is 1 to 4 physical damage. That is the mod, and that mod cannot scale in any way, so it's exactly the same as the Iron Ring. So maybe in the future they'll change these mods if they can figure out a way to balance them, but for now it's just a flat damage mod. So in the start of the game, pretty helpful. 1 to 4 physical damage right at the very beginning of the game. Is nice for an archer who's not just using poison arrow. So, yeah. And then later in the game, it's really a non-issue. You're just looking at the mods on the quiver instead of the actual implicit value. And the same thing goes for most of these quivers as well. So the next one we have is the Rugged Quiver, which is 2 to 3 cold damage. Again, a flat mod that cannot change. And then the one after that is the Cured Quiver, which is 2 to 4 fire damage. Again, can't change. And then after that we have Conductive Quiver, which is 1 to 5 lightning damage. Again, can't change. So out of all of these 4 quivers, they're all just flat mods, they can't change, really not too much difference between them. If for some reason you had 2 identical quivers with the exact same mods on them, or if you had an option of buying, whites to craft with, and you weren't going for a light quiver, which I'll explain in a second, I'd go for the lightning damage quiver, because that can increase the shock chance and length of any shocks you put out, or if you don't have any lightning damage at all and you're very early in the game, it can add potential for you to shock, which can increase your damage. So I think lightning's good for that. Otherwise cold if you want to slow, but really it's such a non-issue that's barely even worth considering. And then the final type of quiver is the Light Quiver, which gives you a dexterity roll. So it's a plus dexterity roll, and the range on that is 30 to 40. So this one's 32, this one's 39, almost max. Now the Light Quiver is actually worth considering and fairly important. For a lot of builds you won't need any dex for your archer if you're just playing like a pure ranger or something like that. But if you're playing a marauder or another off-class archer like a lightning arrow templar or something like that, then you'll often need a lot of dex to be able to equip to be able to equip the bows you want and the skills you want, things like that. So the Light Quiver is one of the best options for getting that. If you can get a max roll Light Quiver, you can get 40 extra dexterity, and then in a second, as I'll explain, one of the actual mods is bonus dexterity, and it is, if I can find the actual amount for it, it is 50. So you can get a maximum of 90 extra dexterity on the quiver alone, which is obviously a huge amount. And with one other piece of gear or with a few dexterity nodes on the passive skill tree, that's more than enough dex to equip pretty much anything in the game. So the Light Quiver is very handy to know or to use if you're an off-class sort of bow user. So pretty good. Okay, so let's jump straight into the mods now, and I'll overlay these up on screen for you guys as usual. So kicking things off with the prefixes, we have Base Max Life. As always, an excellent mod to roll. And then we have Added Min Max, Cold, Fire, Lightning, and Physical. Each has a separate mod, so it's possible to use up all 3 of your prefixes with a Cold, a Fire, and a Lightning mod, or a Fire, Lightning, Physical, or any combination of those 4 mods. Then we have Life Leech from physical damage, Mana Leech from physical damage, not Mana Leaf, and then Weapon Elemental Damage, which is the one that we've seen on belts and on amulets before, obviously another very good mod. And then in terms of suffixes, we have Accuracy Rating, Additional Dexterity that I mentioned earlier, and the max roll for that is 50. Then we have Attack Speed with a max roll of 10. Each of the single resists, so Fire, Cold, Lightning, and Chaos. Then we have Crit Strike Chance, Crit Strike Multiplier, Stun Duration, Life on Kill, Mana on Kill, and Projectile Speed with a max roll of 41, which is actually an interesting one. So let's talk about what are my ideal magic quivers and what are my ideal rare quivers, or the stats I can get on those. There's a few differences, but for most bow users, you're going to want the same thing, so it's pretty easy to tell a valuable quiver when you get one. So for a magic, you pretty much want Life as your prefix. There's a few other ones you can get, like Weapon Elemental Damage or an added min-max cold roll or something like that, but Life easily outweighs all of those for pretty much every build, so you pretty much want Life on a magic quiver if you're desperate and need a magic quiver. Go for one with Life. And then for your suffix, There's quite a few choices there, resists and things like that, but overall I think the most beneficial one is attack speed. Attack speed is very good with any elemental bow build, which is pretty much most bow builds. However, if you don't really want attack speed in your build, or if you don't think it's going to help you too much, then you could feel out one of your resists that you need with the resist on that quiver. It's kind of interesting because the quiver is this really dual attack, dual defense oriented sort of thing. It's kind of like a shield for an archer, I guess. And then in terms of rares, I'd go for life, weapon elemental damage, which is always a fantastic mod to roll. It multiplies all of your elemental damage and increases those out, so very good to have. And then an added element, and I'd probably opt for lightning over all of the others, but if for some reason you really want to stack cold, that could be good, and you know, fire can be good if you can't really get one of the other ones, but you just want a high rolling one of those, and I think give preference to lightning if you have to. Then in terms of suffixes, attack speed synergizes really well with those added damage. So as you can see on my quiver here, I've got adds 2 to 22 lightning damage. If I also rolled an attack speed mod with that, that would make that 2 to 22 lightning damage even more effective. So they synergize really well together. It's a great one to roll. Now here's where you start to have some choices. Those are the basic things: life, weapon elemental, added elemental, and attack speed are pretty much general to most archers. However, there's a few choices you can make in the suffixes. The first one is crit chance and crit multiplier, and you only get this if you're not a resolute technique build. So a lot of bow marauders and bow templars and things like that will pick up resolute technique so they don't ever miss. Obviously that means it takes away their chance to crit, so crit rolls are useless. If you are a resolute technique build, or you're just not trying to get any crit, then resists are an obvious good choice. Resists are always a good fallback for pretty much any item. And then finally, the interesting one, which I said was an interesting stat earlier. If you are a Rain of Arrows build, projectile speed is a fantastic mod to have. 41% increased projectile speed is, almost half increased projectile speed. And that works really well with Rain of Arrows by decreasing the delay on Rain of Arrows. Some people might not actually mind the delay, but the delays reducing the delay is very handy for trying to make the skill a bit more reliable. But that's very much an option, but it's just one to know. If you do need that projectile speed, then the quiver is a fantastic place to get it. So now, just to add to the informational value of this video, I thought I would go over and value each one of my quivers here. So we'll start off with the one I'm wearing, which is obviously good because I'm wearing it. It's got a 6% increased elemental damage roll with weapons. Obviously a good first thing to direct your eyes to. However, it's only 6%, which is quite low, but still, it's something. That adds 2 to 22 lightning damage is not bad for a level 38 quiver, so that's a good roll. Crit strike multiplier is probably the least valuable out of that and crit strike chance, but it's not a particularly bad roll in there, and it's something that's worth noting, but not a huge one. And plus 3 to life gain on kill is a terrible mod, but we do have that 65 to maximum life. The max is around 90 to 100, I think. So 65 is a pretty good roll, and then 34% to fire resist is quite good. So overall, this quiver is good and probably worth trading. Someone would probably pay, a couple of Ox or a Chaos or something like that if they needed it. So then we'll go over to this heavy quiver here. We have 3 mod rolls. That should grab your attention instantly. Level 23 quiver, that's pretty nice damage. Those 3 there, plus the little tiny bit from physical is alright. Accuracy and life gained on kill, pretty useless. So it got dodged out on the suffix rolls. However, because this does not have any life or resists or attack speed, it's really not one anyone would pay anything for. So a useful one to use if you found it and you wanted some extra damage, but since it has no defensive value whatsoever and no attack speed, so it's not a super strong offensive quiver, really not worth trading. I'll skip these two because I just got them from the vendor and they're blues. But then we have this one here. We've got a terrible cold damage roll, so you can practically ignore that. However, we've got a nice synergy here of crit strike chance and crit strike multiplier. It's a low level quiver, so you can sort of get away with having lower rolls on those, but 12% crit strike multiplier is quite low. However, it is quite redeemed by that 59 to maximum life, which is why I've kept it and why I've used it at lower levels. When I was around in the level 20s, I used this just for that 59 max life, so quite good. And the projectile speed, that could work with the Rain of Arrows build on this particular quiver, since crit strike chance and stuff like that, you can use that because Rain of Arrow builds will never pick up resolute technique because Rain of Arrows always hits, so that could be one that worked with the Rain of Arrows build, but probably not worth trading. Then we have this one here, which has got 1 to 2 physical, terrible, a max roll of attack speed, which is nice, but no elemental mods to go along with it, crit strike chance, and 1 fizz to life leech. Pretty bad quiver. I wouldn't really go around selling that. And then we have this final one here, 15% increased elemental damage with weapons. Not bad, pretty good roll. 6 to 16 cold damage is pretty alright for the level. 46 maximum life and lightning resist. That's pretty good quiver. I'd probably sell that for an Ulk or something like that if someone wanted it. It's only got the 4 rolls, but the 4 rolls are pretty good, so not too bad. Anyway, hopefully you guys have found this pretty helpful. I now have a better idea of how to quiver up your archer. Anyway, that's it for now. I'm ZiggyD, and thanks for watching.